Okay, moving on to our next presentation is a company called Milk Movement, and Shauna Day, who's just speaking, she is going to briefly introduce the founder.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So I'm Shauna Day, one of the venture partners with Better Food Ventures, and I'm very pleased to introduce Rob Forsythe, who's a co-founder and CEO of Milk Movement. We actually just participated in their most recent seed round together with Dynamo Ventures, who led the round. You know, really interesting company that's focused on the dairy stream, as the name would suggest, and really looking at business automation and workflow automation, which is one of the key kind of themes that we've been filtering amongst our team in terms of first mile technology. So I will leave it to Rob to tell you more about how they're assisting creameries and co-ops in their digitalization journeys.
Thank you, Shauna. Appreciate the welcome. I'll just get my screen going here. So I'll try to keep this to about 10, 12. I find questions I prefer a bit more and maybe a bit more valuable. So, and I talk fast, so I apologize, but from my part of the world, in Atlanta, Canada, we talk fast and we get through a ton in a short amount of time. So I'm Rob Forsythe, co-founder and CEO of Milk Movement. Like I said, thanks to Shauna. I see Rob Price on the line as well, which is good to see. And thanks to Doon Insights for this invitation. So jumping right into things, we work with the dairy supply chain because my co-founder worked at a dairy cooperative and saw this problem firsthand. So he was manager of transportation and logistics. And while there, he saw that data was very siloed and that the entire supply chain, frankly, was making decisions with limited data. They would often come together every 14 days when money would need to be exchanged between processors, cooperatives, and producers. And in between that, it was pretty bare bones. So we're talking even a lab result taking 7 days to get to a producer when we believe as soon as information is available, it should be available to whoever needs to see it. So we built Milk Movement, as Shauna mentioned. We believe it's the one true source of data for the dairy supply chain. So we bring all 5 of these players. We bring your cooperative, your transporter, your producer, your lab, and your processor onto the system. Everyone is uploading the data that they need to I guess, supply the supply chain, and then taking out reports and various things. We consider ourselves an ERP for the entire supply chain rather than for just one organization. Quickly, our key vision and mission is important to bring up because we know we're in a traditional industry and we know that this is one of the last industries to be digitized. So our vision is to build the most advanced milk tracking system for mapping routes, monitoring pickups, and evaluating production trends. We want to help dairy industry professionals get the tools they need to make better decisions and optimize milk production. And honesty, integrity, security, accuracy, and my co-founder's favorite, building kick-ass products are our core values, because we know that once you lose trust in this industry, you may as well go out of business. So we keep honesty and integrity at the forefront of everything we do with our producers. So I'll get into the product here. Really, it starts each day, actually, it starts with the driver handheld. So we took that carbon copy slip. The drivers would usually write out their temperature, the amount of milk, etc. We took that and replicated it and kept it as simple to use as possible. And now the drivers in our system are doing pickups aside from the actual milk in the app in less than 30 seconds. So it's very easy to use. We have a ton of foolproof features in there like geofences and things like that. But arguably most importantly is constant tracking. So we can show where a driver is in our region at any time. Is he or she ahead of schedule? Are they behind schedule? When do we expect them to get to the processing facility? And we're actually building dynamic route optimization and features now, so we can actually reroute for our drivers during the day, which is pretty revolutionary. So the producer portal, and I'll explain how we get to the producer later, but the producer portal is super easy to use. It shows the farmer their component results, bacteria, payment, sub-accounts. So that means nutritionists on farm, veterinarians, accountants, anyone who needs to see access to data. And really this is their, it's kind of the bird's eye view of their farm. And then what we add as well is we allow our farmers to compare with their region. So maybe protein levels up, and you wonder, am I the only one in my region seeing this right now? Is it weather dependent or different things going on? You can tell because we show you what's happening. And it's just a way to gamify the industry as well. So that ideally producers are actually trying to improve their bottom line, but improve the quality of their milk, and they can actually compare against the industry. The processor portal is becoming really important to us as of late. And this is where your General Mills or your Kraft Heinz or a group like that can see the load coming before it gets there and can plan for it more properly. Typically, there's a lot of surprises in dairy transportation, and we're trying to avoid that. But as well, there's a lot more than that. So the quality data comes as well. It's that relationship between processor, cooperative, producer, et cetera. And then the web tools are there for the farm suppliers, the cooperative, and the transporters. So I think cooperatives are pretty self-explanatory. Your Land O'Lakes, your Dairy Farmers of America, First District, et cetera. Your farm suppliers, we consider your Cargills of the world, your Ecolabs, variety of companies who are supplying products into the dairy farms. Our key customer benefits are one, financial savings. So we've led to 5% cost reductions in transportation, a scalable digital infrastructure. So it grows as users come on and as the industry grows. And it's, yeah, that's basically the best way to put it, and environmentally friendly. So not only are we reducing the amount of trucks on the road and the financial benefits there, the environmental as well. So less empty miles is kind of our motto on the transportation side. Some quotes that we hear, this is from the farm perspective. Milk Movement is fantastic. The real-time access to data is amazing. It's far superior to the way we did things before. That's New World Dairy in Canada. And Milk Movement is the first thing I check every morning and the last thing I check every night. And that's from the general manager of our very first cooperative that came on board, actually. So our business model is this. So we use a land and expand strategy. So we start with the producer and the co-op, and then over time, we grow throughout that region, sometimes quicker than others, to the transporter, to the processor, and to the lab. The pricing model, we have a different pricing model for each, and we're very transparent about it. So per hundredweight, we charge cooperatives 5 cents, we charge farm suppliers 17 cents, transporters 25 cents, and processors 30 cents. And our TAM and how we see it is actually 17, or I believe it's 12.8 billion globally. This is just for dairy. And you can actually see here the cooperatives, which is our entry point, represents only 800 million of that market, but they are crucial for us moving throughout the supply chain. So we start with them, we build the best relationships there, and then we move throughout. Our philosophy is by starting here, if you work your way back, you actually don't have the trust of the producers and you don't have the trust of the cooperatives. And we've seen that fail before quite a bit. So that's our model. And it kind of naturally is what we fell into, which I'll explain in a second. Our projections there, so we're projected to hit 1 million in ARR by the end of this quarter, and then 3 to 4 million in ARR by the end of this quarter next year. So follow us there. These numbers are actually quite accurate. As of today, I changed them, and we're projecting to be higher, up to that 4 million mark, which is really exciting. Some of the traction we have that's got us to this point. So we do just shy of 500,000 ARR across 550 farms, 5 co-ops, 16 processors, and we have 18.5 million in our pipeline, including a large part of the leading dairy cooperatives. We actually just signed a pilot with the largest, second largest dairy cooperative in the US on the West Coast, which is very exciting. So things are moving quite quickly on our side. A brief history. So my background is actually in oil and gas, and John and I went to and did our undergrads together at university. And his background was in dairy. So he worked at the dairy cooperative, like I mentioned, and actually Milk Movement was built to automate his role. And we had a client from day one, and we had producers on the system from day one, which is very exciting and why we've kept producers at the forefront till now, really. So very quickly, just maybe you'll see some groups here that you know, and just show you kind of who our network is. So we started Milk Movement in January 2018. Probably more notably to you folks would be Thrive in California and FoodX in Manhattan. Thrive by SVG Ventures, FoodX is by SOSV. Proud to have them as investors now as well. A few other things, and some of this is trending Canadian, but then you see more international as we move forward. So we also rebranded, built 2.0 of the system here. Techstars, September 2020, the Farm to Fork program in the Twin Cities. This is actually our first Australian client, which is exciting, a bit unexpected as well. And then our seed round. So as Shauna alluded to, we just closed a seed round, 3.2 million in April. So we are not raising for a little while, but happy to start having those conversations, at least have an initial conversation, and then gear up for a really, really exciting 2022 based on those projections. But as you all know, now is when the work begins. So Dynamo, Bread and Butter, Matchstick Ventures out of Minneapolis, Better Food Ventures in California, Techstars and SOSV. Notably as well, we also have a few prominent angels, one being Richard Cargill, who personally invested. And we're very, very excited to have him on board as an advisor and as an investor. So the last thing I wanted to do, so that, you know, I'm not raising for 18 months, but I wanted to have some action and some actually takeaways here to chat about. So the future for Milk Movement, and here's the 4 objectives that we've set company-wide over the next 18 months, are to increase milk managed to 30 billion pounds. To put that into perspective, right now we do 300 million pounds, and a California dairies is around 18 billion. So getting California dairies and 3 or 4 other cooperatives would get us to that goal. It's a very aggressive goal, and we've chosen to target that as opposed to sales. Well, sales is part of that, but as opposed to revenue, I mean, because we believe that the network effect is huge. So every pound of milk that we touch represents a different processor, potentially a different lab, a different transporter. So we feel if we're just targeting ARR, that we may lose some really important network potential that you can see there. Then the second objective is to build leading dairy transportation tools globally. So we do have some competitors in the space, most that have been around longer than us, but we've learned through talking to customers that this is really our Trojan horse. This is the key piece of tech that is lacking in these other areas. So we want to build the best before we get to Series A and have clients using it, which they already are piloting it today. And then in an ideal world, we hit objective 1 and 2, but if we don't have happy clients and we don't have happy employees, we don't believe that we've accomplished the first 2. So those second are our other goals, delighting customers all the time, and engaging that first, which we've gauged now. We now have our baseline, and then understanding and building our company culture and making dairy exciting. Maybe you could say again, but we really don't feel, our employees come and they don't feel like they're part of a traditional industry. They feel like they're part of a very exciting, cutting edge technology and business, which some would say is no small feat in the dairy industry. So that's Milk Movement. I don't have my email here, but I'm happy to share it or add me on anything. Nick, I think you might be on. Yeah.
I am. Thank you. Thanks a lot. That was really helpful. And I really like what you're doing, especially in context of the other investor panels we had today. We're having conversations around supply chains and cold chain. We're having a conversation about the future of animal products and what that looks like. And I think you are on the side of, we're a long way to go to replacing animal products, especially in things like cheeses and for mass adoption. So there's a lot of growth still left to be had in this space. So absolutely love it. Okay, so let's move on to some questions. If you have any, feel free to just jump right in. I know some people do. Yes, David, go right ahead.
Yeah, I was interested, you mentioned at the end that you have a customer in Australia. I was thinking that this, and also that I think your initial customer, or one of them, is in Canada, right? The quote you have, the recommendation. It seems like this is a market where it's going to be organized very differently based on country. So it would be you would need to do a lot of adaptation to expand, but also that you would want to be looking at who is trying to do similar things in the European Union or in Asia, and like there might be opportunities for you there. I was curious to get your thoughts on those points.
Absolutely. So you're very correct. So we started the company in Canada, the only last remaining supply managed dairy company or country in the world. So it's non-competitive, a very interesting place to start a dairy business. And we realized quite quickly that the benefit there was that the industry had come quite far innovation-wise, but whereas non-competitive was not super open to working with tech companies, right? The status quo is more accepted in Canada in a lot of ways. So that's why we switched to the US quite quickly, and why we started to build our network there, because they're actually a bit more behind when it comes to dairy tech, and more willing to work with startups and take risks. So absolutely, totally different strategy. And that's our focus now in the next 18 months. So we believe we can hit those ARR numbers in just North America, the US alone. Australia was interesting. And I would say, my startup 101 probably would say, don't spread yourself too thin. But they approached us, and it was a very small co-op. And for us, actually, it was a bit of a trial, because it was the first dairy co-op that we did during COVID that we fully implemented during COVID from afar. And we said, if we can virtually roll out to a dairy co-op from Canada in Australia, then I think we can do that anywhere. So it was actually more of us testing that model, which we've been successful at. And Australia has interesting potential, but they're actually quite advanced as well. So I wouldn't say we're rushing to that market today. But yeah, absolutely. And we have an eye. I mean, I didn't go through competitors, but dairy.com is our key competitor in Texas. Not as concerned about them as maybe Madcap in New Zealand, who is moving through Asia and Europe as well. So absolutely our eyes on it. Right now, North America is our focus.
Great. And that 30 billion pounds, that's like what sort of, how big is the total market for milk products compared to?
So in North America, well, actually I'll say US, that's about 15% of the US market on the co-op side.
Okay, great. Understood.
Yeah.
Right, any other questions? We still have a few more minutes if anyone wants to jump in. And if not, we definitely can follow up with Rob later. And Rob, your email address is available somewhere, I'm assuming, on the website Milk Movement as well. But if you need to get a hold of Rob, you can reach out to him through our channels or contact us.
Yeah, it's just Robert or Rob at milkmovement.com. Both will find their way to me.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks,
All right,
folks.
thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.